and welcome to Cosmic Connections. I'm here with Christopher, and we're going to be talking about a sensitive topic today. So I just want to give you a little bit of a warning here. The conversation might stir some deep emotions inside of you, and that's why the little warning. But we're going to look at it from hopefully an aspect where we can share some wisdom that astrology gives us and also age gives us, to hopefully give you some insight as to what you might be able to talk to a person who might be going through something difficult during this time in their life. So the first part of this is that we're going to talk about the Saturn return. The Saturn return, as everybody knows, it comes around to us about the age of between 28 and 29. It's the time when Saturn returns to the spot it was when you were born. And during that time can be very trying. In last week's episode, if you didn't watch it, Christopher and I both shared different anecdotes about our own personal experiences and cycles. My Saturn return was very difficult. It was a big, huge shift and change for the trajectory of my life, whereas Christopher seemed to have a little bit easier. So it's interesting how our own perspective can kind of play into it. And so this topic that we're going to be talking about today, in addition to the Saturn return, is going to be about a woman that has chosen to have how do I say, euthanasia, human euthanasia for herself. And she's actually 28 years old. She is from Belgium, if I'm not mistaken. And you know, it's a discussion that I wonder if anybody has really ever, you know, had with her. You know, that this is a difficult time in your life. You know, she may have suffered for some time, but this is a time and a shift to be able to even open yourself up to healing. That's possible. Of course, I haven't spoken to this woman. I don't know her, but I'm just speaking more of a general sense. But I think it's a really good topic to cover because, you know, we all know people that are growing up. We have kids that age, you know, that are growing up and going through these cycles and things like that. So what would you say, Christopher, if you were able to talk to this woman?
Well, like with anything, you sort of want to sit down and let people know that this too shall pass, that no matter what cycle a person's in, it's going to end. It's not forever. And sometimes we get into these situations where we start feeling a certain way, where we do get into a depression and we get hopeless. We think it's never going to end, that it's never going to feel better. And that's not the case. And that's sort of the beauty within astrology, is because we're looking at the cycles, you can see when things are going to end. And then you also begin to look at what's the purpose of it. What is it trying to do? When you understand the reason you're going through something and things that you can work on and when it's going to end and the fact that it is going to end, it can help people get a sort of a peace of mind on it. And, you know, like with this gal, this Zoreya Terbeek at 28, I mean, when I saw this, that a perfectly healthy young gal is going to have her life extinguished because she's in a depression. And it seems like it's been a while that she's been in a depression. But of course, at Saturn return, it's just going to even kick it up to something worse and something more. And it's really, you're trying to examine the nature of life, the nature of physical life, what that is. And it gets into, of course, a lot of core things as far as what people kind of believe. And when we deal with the idea of belief, okay. So, for example, in our physical world, we have science, and we can use science to establish, does it work or does it not work? Okay, that's what we do. And we can see why it may be working or why it might not be working. We can establish some of those things. But when you deal with death and you deal with after physical life has ended, science really has no answers on that one. You can say, well, no, there isn't anything, but that's scientifically, that's incorrect. You cannot comment because beyond the physical realm, science can't comment. They don't know. So we have no scientific way of testing it because, again, we don't know what's beyond the physical. If it isn't in this dimension and physical, we really have no idea. It's all a guess. And that's when you get into the realm of beliefs, what you believe. So for people to say, I believe there's nothing is correct. I believe there's nothing because they have no scientific data. But if they then come and say, but I'm a scientist and I don't believe, okay, well, you just screwed that.
Right.
You're not supposed to. You're supposed to test everything. So it's more, for me, I can deal with the point of respecting an agnostic who simply says, I don't know. That's a scientific answer to say, I don't know. That would be correct. If you say, I believe there's nothing, so atheist, I believe there's nothing, again, then you're not scientific. That's a non-scientific answer because you have no way to test it. So you really can't.
So that
say
would be a belief. You would
That's
say
a belief.
that
It's a total belief. So your
Well,
belief now is trying to outdo other people's beliefs.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That
it's
makes
like
sense.
that doesn't work. We should test everything. So I think with someone like this woman, it says living with mental illness. I'm afraid of dying. Oh, I am a little afraid. She's a little afraid of dying. Wait till she gets closer. It's even going to kick up more. But depression is oftentimes, again, and just we're not diagnosing. We don't really know exactly what's going on. We do know that this woman is approaching a Saturn return. As astrologers, we know that simply based on the cycles. All right.
Of her age, yes.
Yes, of her age. So we know that, which what Saturn does is Saturn wants to, in a sense, it wants to get to the truth. It wants to cut away and get to the reality of what is. And what it does is it sets structures. So it sets form and structure. Oftentimes Saturn is used to talk about the law. It's used to talk about authority. It's in our physical realm. It's what puts boundaries up. It has the element of right and wrong. Saturn does. Okay. So when it returns, what it's kind of asking you to do is to define yourself. Like, why are you here on this planet? What are you here to do? Not be. So I don't want this to be confused because oftentimes we get confused with our being with our doing. No, you don't want to be confused in that way. As a being, you're fine. There's no problems. You're perfect. Everything's great as a being. And when we deal with being, we're dealing kind of at a sort of spiritual soul level. It's that which is, that which doesn't need a body to exist. That's being. Now, when we deal with the body, which again is what science is going to look at, and we deal with the personality, which again, that's in a scientific realm, that's in a physical realm. You're looking at how you're defined and what are you going to bring to the planet? What are you going to bring into this world? What are you going to accomplish? So you have a work. We all have jobs. Why? Well, because that's what life is about. It's about we working together to live, and we will generally hone a craft where we can be proficient and hopefully end up being a master at it. And this is what we give to the community. All right. So that's why we can come together. Each one has a craft. And that's kind of what we do in our society. Now, if you invest very little in yourself, such as what are you a master at? If you're a master at nothing, then how valuable are you?
Right. And that's something I could see someone who hasn't tried to master something or invest in themselves to feel, I'm not saying that it's right. You just need to invest in yourself. But, the work has to be done. Unfortunately, anybody else cannot do for you. It's like we're exercising. Can't exercise for you, can't eat the right for you.
Can't do
You
anything.
have to do it yourself. But that's your responsibility as a soul, as a, incarnated into the physical body. And I would definitely look at that area, if I was able to sit down and talk to her and ask her about, what things does she feel that she is valuable for? Because it's hard for me to believe that someone doesn't have any feeling of value. I mean, maybe that is possible. I know that mental health exists, and mental problems exist. I should say that emotional problems
Absolutely.
exist. But there, even if it's the smallest thing, the littlest thing, you start at the smallest, tiniest thing that the person can see, and then you build upon that. And that's how I've always understood and learned how to pull yourself out of something when you go through everything. Because, people, we're humans. We go through all of the gamut of emotions in our lives, and
Yeah.
to let go and to deal with it in this way. I mean, you brought up a great point when we were talking before we started rolling the camera, that you're not going to get out of it per se, in that you're not going to eventually have to return to figure out this in a different light, in a different way, when you incarnate into the
Yeah.
next person that you are, the next being that you are, the next thing that you are.
Yeah.
And science will tell us that little bit of it, that energy, which is what we are, energy beings. We are not destroyed. Energy isn't destroyed, it isn't created, it just is transferred. So,
Yeah.
on some level,
There's an element of that you could, but I mean, ultimately it kind of comes to a belief, and
yeah,
it depends on what a person wants to believe. Again, when you're
right,
dealing with
that's
that which
true.
happens after physical life, do you end? It would be my personal opinion, uh,
Hmm.
and something that I can definitely be open to, the concept of reincarnation. So the idea that
Hmm.
you're just going to get out of it and then that's the end of it, that you're not going to still come back and have to deal with it again. Okay. My belief would be that, yeah, that's what's going to happen. Like, you can't escape anything. You have to deal with it. So there is no way around it. Now, again, you can say, well, maybe I'll have a different situation. Yeah, not really that much of a different situation. That's not the way I would look at it. So I'm not an escapist. I don't think you can just say, forgive me and die and you're good. Like, yeah, okay, now live it again and let's see you do it right. So that's my sort of way, is that there is no such thing as escaping or getting out of it or getting out
Hmm.
the easy way. Yeah, that's not how life works. And I think people know that at a certain level, that it okay, and they can say, well, life isn't fair. Well, maybe it is. Maybe it is fair. Maybe it looks unfair from one lifetime's point of view, but if you were to consider millions of lifetimes points of view, maybe you're like, okay, that was fair, you know, from that sort of perspective. So again, that deals from a place of belief. Now, there are beliefs that serve people, and there are beliefs that don't serve people. In general, I would say most beliefs are not good. They're not healthy. Okay. So I would say that, because it's hard for people to remain agnostic. It's hard for them just to say, maybe, I don't know. Okay. That's very difficult. People want to know. So, can I say beyond a shadow of a doubt, oh, absolutely, reincarnation is true? I cannot. I don't know.
No, you don't. The
I
physical
don't know.
science proof to it.
I have,
Yeah, it's not
and I don't
possible.
know. I literally don't. I don't know.
Right.
But I will tell you this: I'm going to live as though it is.
Yeah, why
Okay, I'm
wouldn't
going to
you?
live as
It
though
makes
it
sense.
is. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to live so that I'm going to live as though it is, so that, like,
The
okay,
next
you're going to have to
lifetime.
do it. There's no escaping it. You have to deal with it. So these difficulties you come to, you're going to have to deal with it. Um, and that's what I think. Looking at a chart, I really wish we had the chart of this woman, because we could see what she's having to go through. But we
Yeah,
looked all over the place for her birthday, and we couldn't find
you
anything
couldn't find
for
it.
even
Yeah.
any sort of comment on her birthday beyond the fact that she's 28 years old. So,
Yeah.
but knowing the pressure, I have two sons right now that are both in their Saturn return, one towards the end, one at the beginning. All right. So, and it's not easy, and people deal with it differently. They do. They,
Yes.
um, sometimes life's path is a little more clear for certain people than for others. Okay.
Yes.
Now, everyone has challenges. Everyone has to change and evolve. I don't care who you are, that's part of life. But for some, Can they have greater challenges than other people? Absolutely, they can. Okay, I will tell you that. There are some people whose path in life is not like you wouldn't consider it that stressful. Doesn't mean they don't have stress. Everybody has stress, everybody has challenges, everybody has those things. But are there times in your life, or I should say, are there times that does it seem in a life where, my God, what the hell are you doing? Like, like, wow, you really want to grow this lifetime. Okay. And there's other ones where, okay, this one's maybe you're only taking on one challenge. Okay. And there's others that are taking on these massive challenges. Like for me, I see that like, woof.
Yeah.
Now, again, if you're only looking from the perspective of you only have one life and that's it, yeah, that sucks. But if you look at the perspective of maybe, just maybe, you've done this a ton of times and you're going to do it a ton more times, that, okay, this is just one of those. That's what this life is. That's, again, how I conceive of things, and I hold them to be possible. Again, I'm not going to say that it's an absolute because I don't know.
Right. You can't.
But
There's no
I do want to
quantification
hold
of
them as
that.
possible. So I would want to, someone like this, I would want to talk to them about what they hope to get out of this. Because if they think they're just going to escape, I would like to question them on, okay, maybe, but maybe not. Okay, it's like
That's a
maybe,
good point.
but maybe not. Now, if you think that you're going to be reborn and have to deal with this again, do you think you're more equipped to deal with it now or later? And
Yeah.
again, you may say, no, I'd rather do it. If that's the way it's going to be, I'd rather do it later. But you always want to plant little seeds in people's heads just to think about it. Just consider. I'm not saying it's absolute, but think about it. Do you want to do that or not? Because you've got people who go around. I mean, you have your Ted Bundys who go around killing all the people. What do we think that, for the Christian, they sort of die and go to hell and get like, they just get tormented for all eternity. Well, that doesn't make sense to me. Like an ever-loving God that wants everybody to be saved. That's his desire. And like, if that's his desire, he's kind of going to get his way. It doesn't also make sense that you just like on their deathbed, they repent and then, okay, now everything's good. Really? Really? So you just say some words and that's the end of it? Yeah. Okay. Because people will say, well, oh, he believed. Really? What did he believe?
Right.
Like when you really
Right.
get, okay, what did he believe? What is belief anyways? Belief is
Right.
holding on to something that you think to be true and supposedly acting upon that belief, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
if I believe, so do I believe that exercise is absolutely necessary in someone's life? Do I believe that?
I mean, if you did, you would be exercising, correct?
Exactly.
That's what you would do
So
because
the
that's the whole
fact,
thing of belief, right?
the fact that I don't exercise as much as I should means that I don't really believe it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
mentally, do I mentally ascend to it? Absolutely. Would I argue against it? Oh, hell no. I'd probably argue for it. But do
Right.
I believe it? Do I believe it? Not
Well, in this
really.
in the sense on the side of exercise, and this could be maybe applied to every different thing, but
Sure.
there are some people where exercise is more important to them for certain reasons. For instance, myself, I have body stuff going on that I've dealt with, spine things. When I exercise, I feel so much better. Yes, am I living when I'm not exercising? Of course, I'm still here. However, what makes me feel better? So my belief is that yeah, it does, but maybe you can apply that to everything too. So maybe there's certain
I think
people
so.
that have, there's certain aspects of them that but what they believe is real, and that's what they need for themselves. Does that make sense to you? I
Yes.
mean,
It's
that's
just,
possible.
I love the way belief is thrown around, though. Like, you'll get,
Yeah.
again, being Christian and everything, you always get the question, oh, do you believe in Jesus? It's like, what the hell does that mean? Okay.
It
Or
was
as
amazing. I
astrologers,
think so.
or you'll get this comment in astrology. Oh, I don't believe in that.
Yeah,
I don't
that
believe
one
in
cracks me
what?
up.
I don't believe in what? Like,
You
I'm
don't
not
believe in
asking
the
you to believe
stars?
anything. I don't like, yeah, you don't believe they exist. You don't believe this was the position when you, what do you not believe? You don't believe that it has any effect on you. Okay. Oh, so that you don't think the moon affects you at all. You don't think like you can get it to where, well, maybe like, and also you're coming from a position of you don't even know anything. So you don't know
Yeah.
anything about it. And you're telling me you don't believe, which that's not, that it makes no sense. Or again, the one that comes and says, oh, do you ask me, do you believe in Jesus? And all I have to do is say yes, and they feel good. And yet literally not having a clue of what that means. Like, what does that mean to me? They don't have a clue of what that means to me. Yet all you had to do is say yes. And that's enough to, oh, good, we're on the same team. Okay. So the
But your
mind is a
belief might
very
be totally different than the other person's
completely,
belief systems,
completely
right?
different,
That's funny.
completely. But again, this is the way it works. So when you're dealing with someone who's dealing with depression, okay, they're unable to move forward in life. They're feeling inward. Everything is moving almost like into a black hole.
Yeah.
And it's like they're being drawn into this black hole and they have no way out. So they'd rather just end it instead of going into that hole.
Right.
Because
Because the hole is
it's, like,
scary.
it's extremely scary, but somehow you've convinced yourself death isn't.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of, yeah, seems a little odd.
Okay. So there is a statement, I think, I believe it's in Buddhism, that says, if you die before you die, you will never die.
Hmm. What
If
is
you
it? What
die
does it mean? If you die before you die,
before you
you will never.
die, you will never die. When you experience what we call death, separation from the ego self,
Mm.
separation from the body, the sense of, now the ego self is the individual self. Do not demonize that, and I will not demonize the ego self. They're like everybody, oh, the ego, that's a bad. No, it's not. It's
No,
not
we all
bad.
have them.
Oh,
No,
we
it's
have
just
to have them.
we
It's
have to,
ridiculous.
yeah, to keep us in the
But
body. We
you
have
need
to
to
have the ego.
understand what it is and what it is not.
Right.
So the spirit is not individuated. Spirit is simply spirit. It is one. That's why God said, I am one. Those who are with me are one. Okay, because there's only one, there's that one spirit, the one spirit of life. Okay. So if you experience that which is beyond the body, you're experiencing eternal life. Therefore, you're going through a death of the individual self because now you experience the collective. You will do that through different transcendent moments. You can do that in breath work. You can do that through meditation. You can do that through psychedelics when you'll experience that which is beyond the body. You have a sense of no longer being confined to the body. All right. So if you die before you actually die, you never die because you realize that there's life after ego. There's life after the individual. Okay. Now, Saturn is very much about defining the ego, defining the sense of self. All right. So you
Yes.
have a lot of pressure to define that. And in a depressed person, they're already like, you know, I need an escape. I need to experience the transcendent. And would I say that a person like this would need to experience the transcendent? Absolutely. And again, I mean, I'm wondering if she has ever tried any of the, you were mentioning it before, and
That
Venus talked about it.
ketamine
Yeah,
and
ketamine. If she's ever
psychedelics.
tried ketamine, ketamine is a now accepted form of doing that. You can experience, in a
Mhm.
sense, an ego death. You experience that which is beyond the limitations of being attached to a body. And ketamine is a wonderful way to do that, which is now accepted in society and by the medical professionals as a means to do that for
It's
this type of
interesting.
purpose.
Yeah, it's interesting that the medical professionals have come to accept things like ketamine and do different tests on. I think I read an article about them working with LSD and people that were, I don't know if it was depression, but or some other mental thing. But point is, it's interesting how these things are starting to become accepted in the society in a medical sense. And the shamans and the people from the ancient worlds use them as medicine already to help people heal and, you know, understand, like you said, the ego death. So it's
Yes.
interesting that the time we live in now, that it's
Well,
started to shift.
I think from the idea of the whole Aquarian dynamic, you have number one, you have the movement from the Piscean age into the Aquarian age, but you also have now us coming into a Pluto in Aquarius. So we're kicking into that, still kind of moving between the Capricorn
Yeah.
and Aquarius now, but we're going to be at the end of the year, we'll be fully into Aquarius. And with the Aquarian, it's all about the individuation of the self. Okay. So,
Mhm.
but unlike the Capricorn, which is Saturn, individuating the body self, the Aquarian is really individuating the unique self, not just in the sense of structure, but in the sense of, okay, what is this? And then you have the Piscean, which we're coming out of that age. And in the Piscean age, you're dealing with the spirit. You're not dealing with any individuation at all. All right. So it's
Mhm.
just all a collective. And in a world like this that's all material, it's very difficult to translate the Piscean energy in a physical realm. It's very hard because in the Piscean, it's all one. That's why Jesus was the movement from the Aryan age to the Piscean age. So he
Right.
becomes the avatar where the one, Aries, dies for the all, Pisces, the collective. All right.
Yeah.
And yet, much beyond that, not a long time beyond that, you would always have where, and before it for sure, where people were willing to give their life for the sake of the king. Everyone would die for the one instead of the one dying for everyone.
For everyone.
So
Yeah.
that where I will give my life to spare the king. That was a common theme where I don't think you have that so much. There's not a lot of people who would probably give their life to save, let's say, the president, a Biden. Would they give their life? Probably a lot of
Yeah.
people be no. Where before you would have a lot of people saying, absolutely, I'll give my life to save the leader. So, and now with the Aquarian dynamic, what you have is it's not a rejection of the collective, but it's a realization that the collective, although the individual serves the collective serves the individual as well. And there needs to be a partnership in that way where it's not just one way. It's not simply the way of the individual serves the collective.
Mhm.
That's not the way this goes. It needs to be that the collective also must serve the individual. It needs to be both ways. And we don't know how to do that. And we're not going to be good at it probably for another 800 years. It's going to take a little bit of time for us to get good at this. But we will eventually. We'll eventually get good at it. And then we'll suck at it as everything. Everything plants, grows to maturity, and then goes into a death. Okay, that's just the cycle of life. We all do that.
Is that
And then it will die and be reborn, and it'll come back and do all that again. Okay, so it's this very cyclical, and the idea that we as humans escape that cycle is ridiculous in a way, because look at all around us. What doesn't cycle? Everything cycles, even our bodies. Okay, so take
yeah.
this. If when you eat something, how many people are you eating?
Oh yeah. I've thought about that with water too. You know, you're drinking the same water that Einstein drank or whoever, Jesus even, like
Yes,
it
it
just
all
it
it
just
just moves
is.
around.
And then the plants eat the dirt, which was the people or whatever. Like it
Exactly.
It just is. It's
Exactly.
like you can't. Well, I
Exactly.
garden, so the gardening kind of helps me think about the cycles in that and nature
Yeah.
in that sense, because it is everything
Yeah.
just constantly going.
Everything cycles. It's not
Hmm.
like we're not getting any new stuff. It just keeps
And I,
changing form.
yep, and I think that that Saturn cycle, that Saturn awareness is definitely something to remind yourself of, to think about, you know, if you're in a tough cycle, understanding where you're at, or if you're in a tough moment, understanding what part of the cycle you're in, what planets
Yes.
are interplaying with your chart can help
Yes.
you maneuver through it and heal and use it to your advantage, because in my opinion,
Absolutely.
looking at, in my experience, looking at astrology in that light, it can help shed light to the situation and also tell you which way to go. You know, is it time for you? Like
Absolutely.
the it's a time for everything, like the Bible says in that song too. I think was
Yeah.
taken from the Bible. It's a time to like
It
shut
was.
down and be quiet, more introverted. There's a time
Yeah.
to expand outward. And if
Yep.
you know that, then you can work with it as opposed to, you know, ending it, which is, I think, the sad part is what's going on with this woman, that
Yeah.
she's choosing, you know,
Yeah.
her.
To choosing to end it, there's a lot of things that people, again, it's not that something isn't happening with her. It is. It's not that
Right,
it isn't hard. It is. It's
right,
just she is holding on to a belief that there is nothing else.
right.
Okay. So
She said
she's
that in
holding
many
on to a
articles.
belief, yeah, that there's nothing else. So she can just end it and escape. And okay, that's a belief. I consider that definitely an untested belief. It's definitely untested.
Right,
You don't know that.
right.
Um, and if you're wrong, which again, I mean, we all at least have a 50-50 shot at being wrong. Um,
It's true.
and it's like, if you're wrong, then you're not escaping anything. You're not escaping anything. You're going to have
Yeah.
to deal with it. You're still going to have to deal with these issues. Um, and again, if you want to live your life with an escapist mentality, because that's what it is. Again, not saying life isn't difficult and that you can't be in a really trying problem. I mean, you look at some of the people who have gone through just horrible things where their body's been 3/4 of the way burned and all this, and yet they still
Hmm.
continue to live and they
Yeah.
flourish and actually can have very successful lives. And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, you can't say that you can't say that you're going through something worse. Um, maybe the same, I don't know, but it's not necessarily worse. Uh, it's just a matter of, okay, how are we going to handle this? She's going to do what she's going to do. Do
Hmm.
I, from my point of view, my consideration is like, is it over for her? No, you'll just be reborn. You have to deal with it again. That's how I'm going to look at it. So it's not like, okay, you're going to be lost and you'll be gone forever. Um, Most likely not. Um, so I just don't see life that way. If life is that cheap, if all life is you're here, you live for 80 years and you die and then it's just gone, then yeah, we might as well just all off ourselves. Who cares? Because it's
Or
meaningless. Like,
whatever, you know, just
yeah, it's meaningless. If life is meaningless,
right.
because that's kind of what she's saying, is that life is meaningless because I can just end it. It doesn't matter. Nothing's going to happen. If it's meaningless, does anything in the world say that it has no meaning? Like, does an apple tree have meaning? Does a cucumber have meaning? Does grass? Do these things have purpose and meaning? And I would argue everything has purpose and meaning.
Yeah.
And yet, for a human being, yeah, I don't have any purpose and meaning. I just want to end it. I have no purpose or meaning. Like, are you really observing the world around you? Are you really seeing what is? Um, and, with astrology, we study the movements of the largest things that we can even observe. Okay.
Yes.
We study the movements of the largest things that we possibly can see. And we we did not do this. They did it. I don't know how they did it, but somehow they were able to translate it into how it's related to us and that we're related to it. And that's why they came up with the saying, it's above, so below, that there is an interconnection. Like, why? I don't know. And why it works, I have not a clue. I literally have no clue why it works, except that we seem to be connected. Um, and we're connected to everything. I mean, there'll be people who we obviously recognize the fact that we're stardust. Even science shows that we're all one being, that we started off in one little point and then everything exploded. And that's how life began. And so science acknowledges the fact that we're all one. Um, Even though all the vast indifferences, we were all at one point one, totally united. Um, and now we're separate. And yet, is there a link? Is that why? Because we were all one and now we're seeing it separate, and it's like, yeah, but we're still one. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but when they blow the human body up, have you ever seen them take and blow a human body up through a microscope? It looks like space. It
Oh,
looks like
really?
space.
No, I
Oh,
didn't. I
because
never noticed
we're
that. I
not
noticed,
solid. We're not actually solid.
yeah,
We're
nothing is actually
particles.
solid. We're
Yeah, we're
particles. Yeah, just
particles.
dense or not. Yeah.
Yes. And so when they blew it up, there was a movie I was at one time, and they started, and you think it's a shot of space, and they start pulling back and pulling back and pulling back. And eventually you see flesh start to form and then a human, and they keep pulling back.
Wow.
And then they pull back all the way into space. Okay. So
Wow.
they started with a person inside a person, showing kind of what they looked like, and then they just pull back. And it was I never will forget that. I was probably 12 years old, I think, when I saw it, and oh my god, it made an impact on me, because it's like, wow, we look like space. It's like when you blow us up, it's like we're like space. And so, if you think about one little molecule, that an entire civilization lives in a molecule on your arm,
Yeah,
and it thinks it
exactly.
isn't related to the rest of it. Okay.
Exactly.
It's like, yeah,
Exactly.
from your perspective, you don't realize, but we're all one thing here, buddy.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. It's like the ants that come in the house or something if you leave your cat food out or whatever. They'll come in, they know whatever physical reality they can come into, but they in their little nest under the ground or whatever it happens to
Yep.
be. But do they know beyond that? No. Do they know about another country? They know about politics? No. Like they have no idea what those things are.
Oh,
And
they know
I
their
agree, like
world.
that whole thing. And like you said, it gets very small too. It could be little inch of your skin,
Oh,
an
yeah.
inch part of your
Well,
skin.
you
That's
look
just
at us in comparison to the universe, and we're not even a dot. We're not even an ant.
yeah.
We're not an ant when you compare us. And somehow we have all these things that we can do, which again, we think there was something, maybe they're nothing in the whole big scheme of things. But no matter what, we're a part of something. I mean, we're called earthlings because we're a part of this rock, which is a part of all the other rocks. So
Right.
we're a part of that. And to think that, it's sort of like Jupiter is on a cycle and it's following it around. And to think that, well, you could just take that out. It won't matter. You could just destroy it, end its life. It won't matter. No one's
No.
going to think that. And yet they can
No.
end their own life because they think it doesn't matter. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, like, really? Like, do you really think it doesn't matter? Do you realize what your orbit does and who it affects, and how, when it's gone, is it like, we know you take a planet off, it changes all the orbits. One planet goes, everything will be affected. Everything will be affected. And yet somehow we've convinced ourselves that I don't affect anything, only me. It's like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
not true. The whole world changes when there's a loss of that. We might not all consciously be aware of it, but some people will. Some people will know.
Yeah.
Um,
I've
and
I've lost a friend to suicide before. Actual, just not euthanasia, suicide, just
Mhm.
suicide. And that was, like seeing the aftermath of that and how it affected everybody. It wasn't planned. It was just something that was gone. He kind of went in a
Yep.
rage and it happened. He had thought about it before and he'd been trying to get help, and then but the aftermath of that and seeing everything that transpired between the people that I love, because he was someone I was close to, it affects everybody. It's a ripple of something that
Oh,
goes
big
through the
time.
entire community of people, even people I
Yep.
didn't know, going to his memorial and such. And I was close to his mom, because he was someone I grew up with, that, even people I didn't know that he knew, like relatives, family members that I just, even people from the street that were like the mom's friends, they were all like,
Yep.
they were all experiencing something. And so I think that's
Yep.
an important part to think about when you're depressed, that there is someone somewhere somehow that needs you, and I think that would be
Yep.
what I would try to impress upon this woman if I was able to.
Yeah.
Euthanasia for humans to me is an interesting topic, and it's something I've always been interested in, because if you remember, Christopher, Dr. Kevorkian, do you remember him
Yes. Oh,
from,
yeah.
I want to say the 80s, but like
Yep.
he was from Detroit area, so that's where I was born, and like
Okay.
raised a lot in Florida, but also raised up there, kind of
Sure.
split. But it was big news up there because that was like the area he was from. And I always wondered, like, what was so wrong about that as a child? I was young, so I didn't really know. But then getting older and then seeing that now countries are actually permitted. I think the first one was in 2001, when the first country that permitted human euthanasia. And yeah, it was the Netherlands. And it was 2000. Yeah, I think it was 2001. So, seeing that be something that's actually, starting to be accepted, because back then, Dr. Kevorkian, I think he spent a lot of time in jail, if I'm not mistaken, after that. But, looking at it from that perspective, I can understand someone being older, someone being very sick. So I just recently lost a parent. He went through living hell. He had terrible problems and basically just paralyzed and could do nothing but move his eyes for months. And, he went through hospice. It was very difficult and, very hard on the family. I could understand more on that level if there was a space of, I want to die humanely, because basically he was just on meds and drugged up for the rest of his, existence, because there was no other way.
Yeah.
There's nothing they could do to fix him.
Yeah.
So I could kind of understand that, granted
Well,
he was in the
you're almost in that position. It's like you're sustaining a life through
yes,
a non-natural means, and that's
yes.
like, mm,
I thought that too.
yeah,
Have you ever
there's
had a pet that you've had to put to sleep? I have.
oh
I've
yeah,
had to do that, and it's heartbreaking.
devastating.
Oh my gosh, it's heartbreaking. But my brain in that space, and it's happened 3 times that I've always been an animal person, but 3 times it was my decision to do that. I said to myself, would this animal, if in the wild, would it live if I didn't, if there was no human intervention? And the answer was no on all 3 cases. They would end up, probably crawling under a bush or something and just passing away, because they needed the human intervention for it. But that was my decision. So when you think about it from a perspective of, the human is, like you said, being sustained from either artificial means or just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
whatever, it's really difficult. But to have a young person who really doesn't know, like, and it's
that's
no fault of
yeah,
her own. She just doesn't know that life can change, and it does. I know this from
right.
personal experience. The doctor told me by the time I was 50, I'd be in a wheelchair, and because of spine issues, and I proved him wrong. I'm run. So like, that is not true. But you know what? I knew, actually, it wasn't me who knew that I was going to be able to do that. It was someone else. My personal trainer said, don't listen to him. Just listen to me. I'll show you how to do it. But point is that I didn't even see it until my trainer was like, hey, you can actually do this. You can actually change something that you don't think you can change, that you believe is going to be your way, you can change that. You just
And
have
that's
to
where you
have
get to the power and abuse of belief.
yeah. Yeah,
If
that's a big
you
one.
believe, as this girl is, that life is bad and she's depressed, and this is why believing a lie is so destructive. If you
Yeah.
believe that there's nothing you can do to change your situation, if you believe that everyone doesn't like you, if you believe all these sort of things, it literally can cripple the body. It'll just tear the
Yeah.
mind apart and cripple it. Instead of dealing with, okay, but what is? So many times people's anxiety, fear, like hopelessness, all come from false beliefs. That's
Mhm.
what they're all based in false beliefs. They're not based on what's happening here and now. It's based on a fear of the future. All right. Now, I
Mhm.
will say this can be a beauty of Saturn, because Saturn ultimately wants to get to the truth, but oftentimes it wants you to let go of your beliefs because they're not
Yeah.
true. Okay. And which people hold their beliefs so hard, even the bad ones. They hold them because they think they're true, and they think you're almost doing a disservice to that which you worship when you let a belief go. You know, that's why this is one, like, so in the scriptures, one of the things was God was never allowed to be named. You cannot name God, because
Hmm.
if you can name God, you can control God, and you think you know God. You don't know God.
Hmm.
You don't know God. You can have an experience with God, but if you think you understand or know that which is beyond us, you do not. That
Hmm.
doesn't mean you cannot accept the fact that there is something, but to think that you understand it or know it is ridiculous. You do not. You're that ant looking at a human, even though I think the divide is greater than that. You do
Yeah, of
not
course.
understand. You do not understand. Okay. So, and this
Mhm.
is why you'll even get some people really all pissy about the idea of Jesus and God, because you're naming God. Okay. So that's a whole different issue, but it's only a different issue. It doesn't mean God can't be revealed. A portion, a small, like
Right,
this is
in the way that you
like,
need it revealed.
well, God is love. Okay. So you take that. Um, all right. What does that mean? Okay, it's not easy to handle. So you have to go through and handle things. You want to handle beliefs extremely lightly. You want to say, I consider this, but I'm not going to hold it too tightly. You know, one thing I was taught, which it stuck with me, and it's a practice that I like to do. You take all your beliefs and you put them on the back of your hand, and you hold them
Mhm.
no tighter than that. That's as tight as you're going to hold your beliefs. And if they can be knocked off, let them go. Let them go.
Hmm.
You can hold beliefs, but hold them only on the back. Do not hold them like this, because then it's a fight. Hold them lightly, and you'll be always safe if you hold your beliefs like that. So you may think that the future is bleak. Hold it on your back, because you don't know. Literally, it can change in a moment. Okay. Like our past, what we're going through, it's like, it's darkest before the dawn. It's like you don't
Mhm.
know what's around the corner. It may look bad right now, but around the corner, it may look amazing, and you just don't realize that. And I've seen that so often in my life, where there's so many times you can go through something and you can just anguish over it and do all this. And then once you pass through it, it's good. And you're like, what the hell did I made
Yeah,
it
why did I
miserable when it didn't
exactly,
have
I
to be. It didn't have
yeah,
to
it's like,
be.
why did I go over
Why
that
was I
in my
so
mind?
worried? Why was I torturing myself when it didn't need to be?
And
I
most
didn't
things are
need
like
to feel all that. None of that
that.
had
Mhm.
happened. Everything I had projected didn't actually take place that way. And everybody knows this, because we're horrible at projecting everything. Okay. We're not
Mhm.
good at it, especially when it comes to bad things. We make them way worse than they typically are going to be, and
Yeah.
even when things are bad, they don't stay bad. They don't stay bad. unless you believe. Unless you believe that's what's supposed to be, and that's what you're supposed to go through, and that's just the way life is. If you believe it, it happens. Like you'll see people that just like, wow, one thing after another, and then you find out what they believe, and you're like, why are you holding these things? Why do you do that? And so, how we assess life, how we look at life, what does life have meaning? I mean, am I surprised at euthanasia? No. How can I be surprised when we do abortion? So we kill you coming in and we'll kill you going out. Like,
Yeah.
okay, are we really valuing life? What is more amazing than human life on this planet? What is more amazing?
Just
Huh?
kidding. I'm being sarcastic. I said
What?
trees, but I'm being
Yeah.
sarcastic.
Yeah. I mean, trees
yeah,
are amazing, but they're not as
yes, but
amazing
they're
as a
not
human
human life,
life.
right?
Like, there's nothing more amazing. You could build the most incredible computer and it won't even begin to compare to a human being.
Right.
It will not compare to a human being. Now, it can do an
Even the
aspect.
AI.
Even AI will
No, I
never
know.
replace the ingenuity of a human being. It just
No,
won't. Now,
it can't.
can it have a better memory than a human being? At least
Sure.
recall,
Yeah.
yes. At least recall,
Yeah.
yes.
No more words than a human being. Yes. Can I have the,
Yes. It
like
can
in the
learn. It
sense
can
of
learn. Yes.
knowing languages and
Yeah.
things like
A
that. Yeah.
human being programs it. Okay.
Well, actually, I did hear that was it ChatGPT or was it Google's that they started speaking a different language and
They
no
do,
human programmed it. It did it
but
on its own, like it learned on its own.
it did it on its own after a human being created it.
That's true. Yeah, after
So
a human created it, it
yeah.
wouldn't have been
So it'll
created otherwise.
never do anything. A human being still initiated it. Okay.
Yeah,
So no matter
that's true.
what, yeah. So it's like, do we really have a proper attitude towards human life? I mean, we have to ask ourselves, are we really looking at human life properly? Now, there'll be those who are like, wow, why are all these wars and why is this how the destruction of human life, and yet they won't blink about abortion or euthanasia. Okay. So
Right.
it's like, wait a minute, either we value human life or we don't, and then we want to value, but you should have your own free choice to decide to do what you want to do, whether you want to take your life or you want to take the life of somebody else. Like, you should be
Right.
able to choose. Well, maybe not. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe we should value human life. Maybe that should be paramount. Maybe. Again, I don't want to get to a moral kind of thing. I want to get to a practical. Like,
Right.
should we value human life more? At this point in our sort of existence, it hasn't necessarily been hard to have children. But what if that were to change? What
Right.
if all of a sudden it was very difficult to get pregnant and not everybody was? Would that change our perspective on human life? And
Of course.
do we have a proper perspective on human life? I mean, with astrology, we're looking at the dynamics of an individual. Like, who cares about astrology if there's no human life?
Yeah, the cats don't care about astrology. They're just
Oh
like,
no,
whatever.
whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You know.
Yeah.
But are cats choosing to kill themselves?
No, but they do kill mice if they can find them in the yard. But that's
They'll eat
food.
them. Absolutely, they will eat it. And
No, but no, they're not.
and
Of course,
what
no.
are they? What other creature kills itself
Yeah,
because it's
that's a good
depressed on this
point.
planet? None that I know.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that it doesn't. I just am not unaware of it. And what
yeah.
other creature on this planet just kills their young, before it's born? Except maybe a gator. I think gators actually eat.
Oh, do they really?
I
Oh
think
my
they
gosh.
do.
Know that one.
They'll eat their. I think they eat their babies up to a certain point. It's like once you're on
Wow.
your own. Like for them, it's like 1 year or something like that. It's like you need to be on your own, or you're going to be a snack. So,
They're going to be lunch.
Yeah. But it's just, again, not coming at it from a moral, like, well, this is what we're supposed to do. Just coming at it from a practical, how do we treat, and asking the question, how do we treat human life? What are our attitudes? I mean, I cannot say that I'm surprised at this girl, what she's doing, in the sense of, well, life is a little cheap right now. We've got wars, over what? And we're taking human life there all the time. For what? Like, exactly for what? What are we doing that for? And how much is belief involved in all this? How much is the Israel Gaza thing? How much are beliefs involved in what's going on?
I
What's
mean, I think
happening
a lot of
there?
it, if not all, is beliefs in that, you know?
Yeah, there's things like people respond, and why are we doing? Why do we as humans? Why do we treat human life like that? Um, and then again, can I be shocked at what she's doing? Well, in one part, yes. Um, but is it any more shocking than the things going on in Ukraine and Russia and Israel and Gaza and all the other conflicts that happen? When can we, as humans, can we step back and consider what is, and begin to, like, okay, how are we going to deal with this? What are we going to do? um can we look at human life that way? And obviously we're not doing it now. But hopefully we get better, and in a few thousand more years we'll be much better at it. And
In a few thousand more years. Yeah.
well, yeah, this isn't, I mean, you figure we've been doing this for a few thousand
Right.
years, and we're better than we were. Okay, so if people want to think that we're not better than we were 2,000 years ago, read some history, because we are way better than we were 2,000
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
But
There was,
we're still not there. We're not close to eliminating war. That's still
or even valuing
how we
human
use it.
life for that matter.
Yeah, we're not. We
You know,
don't value human
that's
life that much.
obviously,
Maybe a little better than we did. It's a
yeah.
little better, but it's still not that much, you know. Again, we value it to a certain degree, but maybe not as much as we should. So, um, for those experiencing a Saturn return, which I'm in my second Saturn return, so I'm 5 degrees off. It's moved beyond 5 degrees, so it's still a Saturn return. It's still affecting. Again, the second one's about like the first, not bad, um, but you do end up getting a set how you're going to sort of define your life, because that's what it is.
Mhm.
What am I? And when I say define my life, I'm not defining my soul. I'm
Yeah.
defining what I'm here to do. Like, okay, what am I going to do? What kind of mark do I want to leave? Um, Whatever that may be, you know?
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe you freaking plant a tree or something like that. I don't know if that's what you want to do. But
That's what I
it's
always
like,
tell my clients that are approaching their Saturn return. I think that humans did it wrong when they say 21 or 18 is grown up. I disagree. I think when you hit that Saturn return is when you grow up and you are,
yeah,
I've had many clients, oh, well, I feel like I should be in a different place in my life because they're judging their path with everyone else's path. And, maybe their friends have like kids and a marriage and all that jazz at 28, but yet they're still figuring themselves out. And like, that's not it at all. You're actually walking the right path for yourself. Your path just is different, and if you look at it from that perspective and realize that one way doesn't fit everybody, then that
oh
can
yeah,
kind
no,
of help too. Yeah.
yeah,
But I noticed
definitely.
that people do tend to have that shift in grown up mentality when they approach that first Saturn return. That
Oh,
generally
definitely,
is a thing that I've noticed.
definitely. The amount of people that get married or change careers or go back to school, whatever, is a lot, and they feel the
Mhm.
weight that Saturn return. There's no doubt about that. Because it is a weight. Because you're being given a sense of responsibility. It was so in the story of Jesus, which we see the Saturn return there, where Jesus goes out at 30 years old to meet Satan. And he's asked a question of who he is. So it's his identity. And it's only after that encounter with Satan in the wilderness, the encounter with Saturn, to establish who you are, that he begins his ministry. So that's when he begins his work. And that's what we do, is we must know who we are, and then we have to go be who we are, or do who we are. Understand who you are, commit to who you are, now start doing it. Go out in the world and do it. Be that which you say you are. And then again, you'll come up at your next one at the Uranus opposition at 42. It'll ask you, are you doing this? Are you that commitment you made to Saturn as far as what you were going to be or do? Are you fulfilling that? Are you being your unique true self? And these are the challenges that are there. And that's the challenge that Saturn really has with us. And it's harsh. That's why, to me, Satan always gets a bad rap. Okay. He's tough, and he's an accuser in the sense of, you committed to something and he's going to try to make sure you stay on target, but he's going to do it by saying they did this, they didn't do that. They, like an accuser, like challenge, like, okay, you're not doing what you said you were going to do. You need to do that. So it's trying to really get you on the path that you need to go on. It's just in a harsh way. So,
Yeah.
And, again, it can be difficult. There's no doubt it can be difficult. I would never say that it isn't difficult. It is difficult, but you can do it. Everybody is equipped to do it. You're not like, if you've been told, well, you just can't do it. And I was reading somewhere where one of her doctors was like, oh, it's hopeless.
Yeah,
okay.
What kind of doctor does that? Like,
is unreal. If you're being told it's hopeless, don't listen to
find
that.
another doctor.
That's a lie.
Yeah, like seriously.
That's not true. It doesn't mean it isn't difficult. It doesn't mean it won't be hard, but as long as there's breath in your lungs, like you're not hopeless. All right. You can still do something, like you can still accomplish something. And your life has worth and meaning. And there's no doubt about that to me. Like, life has worth and meaning. Because if your life has no worth and meaning, then my life has no worth and meaning. Because either life has worth and meaning or it doesn't.
Or it doesn't,
and it's
right?
not, for some, it has worth and meaning, and for others, it doesn't. No, we are part of one race, the human race. No, it does not. Yeah, it's either all or nothing. Either our life all has meaning or it does not. And again, that's at least my thought. That's what I hold. And I could be completely wrong. I could be totally off base. And you know what? It's okay. I'll live in this delusion. Because I don't want to live in the other delusion. That
you
I
get
would
to
not
choose your delusion, right?
Well, if that's what it is, then that's what it is.
If that's what it is, right? You get to choose it.
If it's simply a delusion, which I'm not saying that it absolutely, I'm not 100% saying it's not. It could be totally delusional. But you know what? If it is, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with this delusion.
I'll live with you in that one too. Me too. I'm okay with that delusion as well, if it is a delusion.
Yeah, if it is. Yeah.
On a positive note, so just to let you guys know, whoever's still with us, we are super excited because the plans for next year's Cosmic Conference, Cosmic
Patterns.
I can't say it. Cosmic Patterns Conference is going to be is being underway. So excitingly enough, Christopher went and checked out the hotel with Faye Cochran this past weekend, which was, from what I understand, really lovely. So it will be fun. You definitely can watch us, and we'll be telling you more about it and having some of the speakers on as we figure that part out. So definitely stay tuned to it. tune to us for that. So yeah, just wanted to share that little tidbit of information that you guys can look forward to. It'll be nice to be able to see everybody in person again next year.
Oh, it'll be, yeah, it's great. It's in Orlando, the Florida Hotel and Conference Center there, right attached to the mall, the big Florida. It's a massive mall too. My God, you get lost in that place. So, and it's
Wow.
literally attached to it. A beautiful place. You know, we're going to have, I believe, 3 tracks going on. So this will be a lot bigger. We've got some, I can't wait till we can actually get everything confirmed and all the speakers, who's going to be there, but there'll be a lot of speakers, and then we'll let everybody know. But very exciting. It's going to be a really fun event with just a lot of people, a lot of great topics. There's not one line. So we'll be doing, of course, vibrational astrology, but that's only one line.
That's one track, right? One track
that's
will
only
be
one
VA
track
stuff.
is the VA. There'll be 2 other tracks, you know, going on modern and traditional astrology. So it'll basically, and then we're going to have newbie, a line for, you know, where new people can go and what they're going to learn. And so it'll just be a great intermix, a great community where we can come together, appreciate all of our own sort of individual understandings of things, like our own traditions, and yet at the same time honor other people's tradition, honor how they do it. I know that for me, that's such an important thing is, you know, do what you do and do it well. And keep to the rules, keep to the Saturn structure that is a part of your tradition. Do that. And then let other people do theirs. Like, I don't know how many times I've gotten stuff out of Vedic astrology, you know, with the sidereal charts. And yet that's not my language. That's not how I see the chart. But I cannot deny that the things they say aren't real. It's still true.
It's true.
Because it's how they read it, and they understand how that tradition works. So I am less into what's right and wrong and holding to this belief or that belief. It's like, if it works, I'm good with it. Like, if it works, and I mean, I love the nakshatras and then that whole moon system. I've gotten a lot out of that. I've learned a lot. It's helped me personally. It's helped clients. And yet that's not the system I typically use. But when I do the nakshatras, I want to follow their rules. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. Okay.
Right.
So,
like, you wouldn't do traditional astrology and be looking at Pluto and Uranus or something.
Exactly.
They weren't.
Exactly.
You'll use their methods. And I think there's something beautiful in having the different methods to understand them. And yes, they might not be evidence-based like VA is. However, there's still something in it that of value, you know, and I think to everybody, it resonates differently to everybody. Everything resonates differently.
Well, and
like,
you know, I would want to say too, when you deal with, so the concept with VA being evidence-based is where it's sort of birthed out of that instead of being birthed out of a tradition. That doesn't mean that a tradition isn't true. It just means that it wasn't birthed from, okay, we look at evidence and then that's how we establish what we're doing. Okay. So that's really the only difference. It doesn't make anything less true, because there's a lot of things out of the traditional way that are totally true, but it's based in tradition. So again, it's not a matter of things being true or false. It's the tradition and how it's sort of established, how it comes about, you know, how things are formed. Because I think sometimes there's misunderstanding when it's sort of VAs talked about as evidence based where the other ones aren't. It doesn't mean there's no evidence. It just means that it's coming from tradition, it's not based. Its foundation was not evidence. Its foundation was tradition. That's all.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's all that means.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, because it's like, you know, just for people to understand, we're not slamming things because you know, for me, language is a real important thing. And I use all those things too, because I find they work. Okay. And if it works, that's all I care. That's all I care.
Right.
Is that something works. And I just love the idea of people being able to get together that are really masters in what they do. Like they
Right.
know what the hell they're doing. Because that's how you learn. That's
Right.
how, even if you just learn like one little thing, sometimes someone will say something and that's it, man. It unlocks things for you. And just being able to be around all these other astrologers, there'll be just a lot of astrologers there. It's great to have those conversations and to see what people are doing and to learn new ways of viewing things. Like I would love to learn more about the what we had today. The golly, why am I spacing it? You know,
Oh, the
the
eclipse,
eclipse.
the Saros
Yeah,
cycles. Yeah.
yeah. Just the
Yeah.
whole like this one was, and I did a whole thing. I did kind of a magic thing on this one, so because it's too powerful. Like
Yeah.
in
With Chiron.
Aries, yeah. Well,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got it. It's in Aries, and so for me, with my Mercury in Aries, like it plays a lot into that. Plus, we're at a new moon, so it's like it's a new moon. It's Aries. It's all like okay. There's just too many factors here going
Hmm.
on. Like
Well, that makes sense.
I need
Yeah,
to
and the
plant something.
Chiron is the same degree of it too. When it was at 19 degrees Aries too, so the Chiron had an
Yeah,
influence in it too.
yeah,
Yep.
which gives that extra charisma that's there. Yeah, because Chiron was at 19 degrees Aries as well.
Yep.
19, they were all at 19 degrees, hitting it
Yep.
there, which was great. Yeah, it's a again cool thing, neat how these things all come about and what they do. I think I have concepts in my head about this, but they're not. I would love to hear from someone who has worked with this for years, personally, with that looking at those aspects and what they mean and how you use them, how you work with them. I think that'd be fascinating, so
Yeah.
again,
I think
that's
it would
some of
be.
the things that people will be able to get is just that people who know their stuff, and with 3 tracks going on, you're going to have plenty of options as far as what you want to do, sort of what you want to learn. So what's the dates on that, Starlene? Do you remember? It's March.
Um, I want to say it's the 6th, but I'm not sure
Oh, 6,
exactly.
7, 8. So, yeah, either 6, 7, 8, or 7, 8, 9, or something like that is that weekend in March
It
next
is,
year.
yes,
So
7, 8, 9.
definitely set that time aside on your calendar and plan to be in Orlando, Florida. So, because it's going to be a really great time. So,
Yes,
all
and we'll
right.
definitely be giving more information on it as
Oh yeah.
it comes to us.
Yep.
All right, this was a great conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.